I treat everyone equally.
I think talking about race
I just
divides
think I
us
need to
should
work
not be
harder.
held
I have black
responsible
friends.
for the behavior of my ancestors.
not racist.
I'm not racist. (1787). Following the Revolutionary War, the United States had held its Constitutional Convention. The economy had quickly become a priority as the new nation sought to recover. Wealthy independent landowners from northern states were slowly transitioning from the institution of indentured servitude to a model of low-wage labor. They had also assumed that the practice of slavery was on the decline everywhere and would soon die out in the American South. Northern congressmen had included the slave trade clause, with a number of other provisions in order to curb Southern plantation owners' ability to import any more slaves from Africa. Southerners resented this move, seeing it not only as an act against their way of life, but as a strike against their economy itself. The North was following the global shift in attitude toward slavery. The entire institution had become less profitable with each passing day.
1791. Without the British crown to guide them, the Americans formed a new economic compass pointing in 4 directions. Farms were enlarged to satisfy the increasing number of factories in the North. With this came the innovation of cotton mills and the invention of the cotton gin. A mechanical revolution had made a new group of people wealthy almost overnight, the industrial class. By this time, most of the world had resolved to no longer abduct people across international borders and subject them to forced labor. The United States had acquiesced, only to develop an arguably more contemptible practice. The South had decided to home grow their own slaves, matching and surpassing the economic output of wage labor rivals in northern states. Slave farms were designed on an industrial-like model to scale in southern states, promising to replenish any lost, aging, or ailing workforce. While the North drove their interest westward, the South looked to expand both west and south into Mexico. That was until Mexico had decided to outlaw slavery altogether. In just under 2 years, Mexico had ceded and Texas had won their sovereignty solely to retain their right to keep slaves. With existing real estate being transformed into greater farms or large factories, the already crowded American landscape was shrinking. Eager investors probed westward for more space. Despite hundreds of thousands of indigenous people already living there, the United States Congress made it federal policy to remove indigenous peoples for the sake of American economic expansion. The U.S. government issued an ultimatum to indigenous nations that they move onto reservations in the West or die, as American agriculture quickly swept in to cultivate the appropriated lands. Southern plantation owners took advantage of government subsidies to purchase this newly stolen land. They expanded their business model in African slavery and planted and harvested the most profitable crop to ever grow on the continent, cotton.
All of this rapid growth came at a staggering cost in human exploitation. This expansion was explosive, causing people to become wealthier than they'd ever thought possible. Fueling that wealth was 2 opposing economic philosophies. As they became clearer, the burgeoning new nation rippled in tension across its center. The American South had perfected its domestic slave system. The American North sought to profit off wage laborers, yet that change was slow in coming.
Northern industrialists moved away from slave labor by instituting gradual systems of emancipation across northern states. This system placed enslaved people into forced apprenticeships for periods of up to 28 years in service to their former masters. Eventually, these industrialists generated their wealth by paying their laborers the lowest wage possible, requiring long work hours, oftentimes 7 days a week, further exploiting them by not facilitating their health care, nor giving them a safe workplace, lodging, food, or any other provision. This maximized investor profits. The domestic slave system, on the other hand, granted Southern plantation owners the ability to purchase a slave's entire lifetime of labor for a one-time fee.
The plantation owner would then provide food, clothing, and shelter, exploiting that slave to the greatest extent until death. The owner also had the option to exchange or sell a slave that had become a liability due to a robust national slave market. Southern plantation owners legally decided that the enslaved status of the mother determined the slave status of the child. In the absence of legal importation of enslaved people from Africa, the value of domestically born slaves skyrocketed. This made women immensely more valuable to the internal slave trade. The more children a slave woman had, the more slaves the plantation owners could sell or employ.
The domestic slave system, combined with the innovation of the cotton gin, resulted in an economic boom the world had not yet seen. 400,000 enslaved people imported from Africa multiplied to over 4 million. By 1830, the United States was producing 1/2 of the world's cotton. 20 years later, it rose to nearly 3/4.
1850, Natchez, Mississippi. By mid-century, the small town of Natchez, Mississippi was home to more millionaires per capita than anywhere else on the planet Earth. Just outside of town was the second largest slave market in the nation, the Forks of the Road. Both northern states and southern states were playing two sides of the same coin: exploit the worker by extracting the most output possible, yet the South maintained the economic advantage. The North envied the South's ability to make an outrageous fortune. Depending on a slow and steady influx of immigrant wage laborers, the North found it impossible to compete. The United States economy had become a pressure pot, a jealous and bitter rivalry that would end in blood. Tensions climbed as states entered the Union, competing over the interests of slave labor versus free labor. These two economic systems threatened to splinter the nation as Congress worked furiously to balance the interest of slave and free.